It's extremely cold and windy, but the show must go on. I'm trying to get some cold hardy crops planted, and I'm finishing cleaning up the raised beds. And there were some leftover seeds from when I planted the fall crop of carrots. And look, this shows how cold hardy they are. They grew, despite the fact that it was freezing. Nature has an incredible way of surviving. I'm not going to film too much today because the wind is so bad you probably won't hear me too well, but I just wanted to show you that. That's pretty cool. And the chickens will really appreciate these greens. And look at that. A stray romaine freckled lettuce seed must have fallen in between the raised beds. And once it warmed up a little bit, it sprouted. Okay, so I just got back from work. I picked up a bunch of plants. They're all grown from a local nursery. Now that the freezing nights are finally behind us, it's time to get serious about planting. I do a lot of stuff from seed, but some stuff it's easier just to get stuff as plants because I don't have a greenhouse, so I can't start everything inside. We're going to do cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and I do have past videos on that too if you want to check those out as well. And I'm going to try Brussels sprouts for the first time this year. I planted my lettuce and my kale and my arugula over the weekend, and I forgot the spinach somehow, so I'm going to do that today. And I'm also going to do watermelon radishes. So I filled this raised bed with nice fluffy soil, compost from the chickens, and fertilizer. I will go over the fertilizer tips in a second. But this is where I put my salad greens, and I'm going to add the spinach. And while I plant it, I'll tell you a little story. So today we had a solar eclipse. I think here we were in the 80% totality. So it did not get pitch black here, but it did get pretty dark for a little bit. It was really cool. There was a definite temperature drop. And it was funny because one of the salesmen where I work came in. I was outside working in the garden center when our salesman pulled up, and he walked up to me and he looked really concerned, and he was like, "It feels really eerie out here. It kind of feels like I'm looking through sunglasses." And one of my clients, which was a little very old farmer, he was like, he called me and he was really worried. He's like, "It's getting really dark and cold out. What's going on? Why does it feel so weird?" And I was like, "Yeah, the eclipse is happening right now." And he was shocked. He was like, "I didn't even know there was supposed to be an eclipse." It was really funny. And it was interesting because there were so many people on a lot of my local Facebook groups that I'm in, and they were so worried and nervous and paranoid about, what do I do with my animals during the eclipse? You don't have to do anything. They're fine. They don't care. And even if you are in a state where it did get fully dark, if you have chickens or something, you don't need to worry about it. Their natural instincts will kick in. If it's dark, yeah, they might get confused. They might go try to roost somewhere. But it's not a big deal. They're not going to die just because there was a solar eclipse. I'm not really sure why people were so worried about it. I like that people are concerned about their animals and that they were thinking about them, I guess, but there was really no need to panic. The garlic is looking good, getting bigger every day. I bought my seed potatoes too today, so I'll show you how to grow those as well. When the time comes, first things first, let's finish with the other stuff that I just started. But yeah, I did not have eclipse glasses, unfortunately, but at work some of the guys were looking through the welding mask and I was busy. But I gave the camera to one of the guys that works there, and he tried filming through the welder's mask. It didn't turn out too great, but I'll show you a little bit of that. And I'll put in some pictures that my brother got. He had the special glasses that you can use with it. So here's a look at that.
Oh, kinda. It's just green. I mean, that's what happens.
It's not working, Chelsea.
That's a shame.
But you see it, right?
Go outside. Maybe
Mike is just, he can't see it.
Go outside.
But you
maybe
can
go
definitely see it.
inside.
He can't.
My friend who lives in Ohio had full totality there, and it was so dark that the streetlights came on at his house. He sent me some Snapchats of it. It was really cool looking. What did you guys think of the Eclipse? Not phased? Didn't think so. Okay, so let's have a little fertilizer chat. So, I put bone meal, blood meal, in the raised beds where I will be growing the leafy greens. I also put a lot of bone meal where I'll be growing the carrots and the beets. However, in the carrot raised bed, I did not put a lot of blood meal. Blood meal is high in nitrogen. It helps things grow. So if you were to put too much of that where the carrots are going to grow, the plant would get confused and it would focus more on growing really lush, large, beautiful green carrot tops, but not the actual carrot root itself that you want to eat. So you got to be careful with that. And carrots are obviously a root crop, so bone meal is really good because bone meal is a great source of phosphorus. Phosphorus focuses on root development. Same with the beets. I put a lot of this in the beet one. I actually did put some of this in the beet one too because one, I like to eat the beet greens, so I don't care if those get large. But also, I've been experimenting, and in years past, I've tried adding more nitrogen to the soil, and my beets have been bigger than they have ever been. So that rule must not apply for the beets, or maybe I just got lucky. I don't know. All I'm saying is it worked for me. They were huge. They were perfect. Here's a picture. So the numbers on fertilizer are going to stand for your 3 main macronutrients. The first number is always nitrogen. Like I said, it helps things grow. The next number stands for phosphorus, root development. Potassium is the third number. That is great for basically all around health and strength of the plant. Phosphorus is always a good thing. Now, plants are living things. Like all living things, they need to eat so that they can grow and thrive properly. So don't try to skip things or cut corners by trying to save money and leave this out because it's not worth it in the end. You're not going to get the results you want if you don't take proper care of your plants and feed them. Compost is a great way to add micronutrients, which is also essential to plant health, to the soil and other nutrients to help them thrive. So if you have chickens like I do, their manure makes a fantastic compost. If you do not, you can also buy compost from your local feed store. Leafy greens such as spinach, lettuce, arugula, kale, all that stuff, they love nitrogen, so blood meal is a great slow release way to add nitrogen to your soil without burning it. Those leafy greens can be planted earlier in the spring, or you can also, depending on where you live, most places you can do a fall crop as well, where you would plant it late summer and it would then be ready to be harvested by fall. They are pretty cold tolerant, they're frost hardy to a certain degree. And for most greens, especially lettuce, you can plant a lot of it in a small amount of space, so it's a great option for small farmers. There's so many different lettuce varieties out there, so many different colors. And like anything that you're growing and picking fresh, it's going to taste so much better and have way more nutrients than the stuff that you get at the store. Because when you're growing it yourself, you can pick it and eat it the same day, so it still has all of those nutrients in it. And it's just going to taste so much better because it's fresh. As for the radishes, they don't need quite as much fertilizer as some other plants. They're not too picky. You don't want to make the nutrients too rich in radish soil, or the greens might grow too much and you'll get little tiny roots of the plant. But I do add compost to the soil and bone meal. Some varmints been digging in here. That's something I really struggle with. The rabbits around here are such a problem. So this is where the radishes are going to go. I love watermelon radishes because one, they're really, really pretty, especially once you cut them open. Two, I like how they get larger than a lot of radishes, like the sparkler, for example, is pretty small. And the flavor isn't quite as sharp. It tastes really good, it's pretty mild, and it looks really pretty when you add it to your different meals and dishes with the color pop right there. And I just think the flavor is great. And you really don't see them too often. So we're gonna mix this up. I plant mine about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch deep, and you want to space them at least 3 to 4 inches apart. Keep the soil nice and moist. You don't want it to dry out, especially when the root itself, the bulb of the radish, is actually starting to form, because if you let it dry out, they can get cracked or dry and just the flavor won't be as good. So make sure you're keeping the soil moist. It doesn't have to be soaking, just moist. Most radish varieties have a really quick turnaround. Some of them are ready in about a month, but this one does take slightly longer. They take about 60 days. For carrots and for beets, you want to have really light, fluffy soil. They do really, really well in raised beds because that way you don't have to worry about rocks interfering with the root development, and you won't have to worry about your roots splitting, cracking, or being stunted in their growth from hitting those rocks or any sharp pieces or hard pieces in the soil. So they do really well in raised beds. Nice fluffy soil. Feel free to add some all-purpose sand to it if you want. That actually really helps make it nice and fluffy and gives the carrots and the beets a really nice way to just freely grow down.
Hi everybody.
What's your favorite type of carrot?
Rainbow carrots, of course. I like purple haze, but I also like Danver carrots because somebody I know has a chicken named Mrs. Danvers after the carrot.
Really?
Yep.
Who could that be?
Oh, I wonder who.
So as you can probably tell by that little tidbit there, there's lots of different carrot varieties out there. This is one of my personal favorites. I'll let you see the description on some of these different varieties. Feel free to pause the screen and read more if you need more time to read this. So as you can see on here, the purple haze has a purple skin, but the inside of the carrot is still going to be orange. This one's white all the way through. This one is fully yellow. And deep purple is nice because, as you can see from the picture, it is purple inside and out. And they say that purple vegetables have more antioxidants than other vegetables. If you've never had homegrown carrots before, I highly recommend that you give it a shot because they taste so much better, so incredibly different from what you get at the store. It's a huge difference. The carrots from the store, I never ever have a desire to just eat them plain, but homegrown fresh picked carrots are so good. I can pick it and just wash it off and eat it right then and there. I can't even describe how different it is. It's crazy. And since you're watching this video, that means that you're probably considering growing carrots, but if for some reason you don't have the means to do so, even though you can see, you really don't need a lot of space for it. But if you can't do it, I recommend going to a farmer's market this summer and getting some fresh, locally grown carrots so you can taste the difference for yourself. You can see how teeny tiny the carrot seeds are. Some people will use seed tape to help plant these because they're so small, sometimes it's hard to track them. So you can do that, or you can just grab a pinch of them and just sprinkle it over your area like that. And then once they sprout, you can go through and thin them out, because you want to space them about 2 to 3 inches apart. It is recommended that the rows are 12 to 18 inches apart, but honestly, I never really space them that far apart. I usually do like 6 inches apart, and I've had great success with them, but play around with it, see what works best for you. What I do is I dig my rows, and then one by one, I'll drop the seeds in. And even then, sometimes they're really tiny, so when you water them, sometimes they will, even if you space them appropriately at the time of planting, they might kind of get squished together from being watered. They might move around a little bit. So you probably are going to have to go through and space them out. You don't want them growing right on top of each other because then they might grow intertwined like that, and you don't want that. You don't have to bury them deep at all. Just a light covering over the top, and then I usually pat it down just to help hold them in place. Now, this is going to take a while, so I'm not going to waste time showing you how I put every single seed in here. But I will tell you that the same basic principles are going to apply for the beets. Just like carrots, there's many different beet varieties. Beets and their greens are considered a superfood. My personal favorite is the golden beets. I like the red ones a lot too, but the flavor of these is just so different and so unique. So this is my personal favorite. I grow both varieties though, just because I enjoy both and it's nice to have a mix of colors. So with the beets and the carrots, you don't want the soil to dry completely out because that's really going to stunt the growth, similar to the radishes I was mentioning earlier. So keep the soil nice and moist. I will show you some pictures of last year's carrot and beet harvest. And then if you subscribe, you can follow along and see the progress of these as they grow throughout the season, and then the end result when we pick them. And you can see beet seeds are a little bit larger, so they're slightly easier to deal with than carrot seeds. But I'm going to get started on this. I'll go ahead and water it, and then we will move on to potatoes. Breaking news. You guys are probably going to think I'm a freak, but look. If you watch my video, you know that I am very fascinated by isopods, also known as roly-polies, and look at this cute little guy that I found. They are so incredibly beneficial to your soil. I actually have a video all about them. You can even get some captive raised ones to have as pets or to put in your reptile or amphibian terrariums or even plant terrariums to help keep things clean and aerate the soil and just give your pet or your plants better health. So check that video out. I'll actually put the link in the description so you can learn more. Believe it or not, these are actually crustaceans, not bugs, but they're really, really cool. So anytime you see them in your soil, it's a great sign because they're going to help take care of things and keep things clean. They can even remove heavy metals from the soil. They can eat them and process them without causing any harm to themselves. So they're just really, really good at keeping their little environment that they're living in clean. They eat decaying matter, they eat mold. When they tunnel through the ground, they aerate the soil, so they're really, really good for root crops, so I'm happy that I found it in the raised bed for carrots. And as you start to learn more about them, you'll start to become excited too when you see them in your raised beds. See that little tiny millipede next to it? They're very beneficial for the soil too. I've been finding lots of millipedes, isopods, earthworms in here. This whole little raised bed really is thriving. Very excellent sign. Uh-oh. It just goes to show that everything serves a purpose. So here are the potatoes. We're going to be planting blue potatoes, 2 different kinds of red potato, Eva potato, which are a white potato similar to Kennebec, but in my humble opinion, I think they're better. And I'll tell you why in the next video. So make sure you subscribe because I don't want to overload you guys with way too many things getting planted today. And plus, I don't want the video to go on way too long. So the potatoes and the onions that I'm going to plant are going to be in their own separate video next week. So stay tuned. But I got lots of different varieties in here. And the cauliflower and the Brussels sprouts and all those other plants I showed you earlier in the video, I will make a video all about that as well, so don't worry. I'm going to close this video out with some footage from the horse farm because I haven't updated you guys on Cinnabara in a while. If you're new to the channel, she's my rescue Arabian mare that I got almost a year ago. April 16th will be our 1-year anniversary. And there's lots of baby goats and lambs and all kinds of new animals at the farm where she's boarding, so I'll show you a little bit of that. The farrier is coming out in a couple days, so I'll be back there soon. So make sure you stay tuned for updates on all the animals and the garden. Whoa, that's an honor. Ibarra has a new friend in the field. I don't know who this horse is, but she's cute. She looks like she may also be Arabian. Farrier's coming out in a couple days.